Okay. So it's on. So this is a conversation for a Learner's Edge course that I'm taking. It's on, we're discussing the difference between teacher burnout and demoralization. So basically what I got out of this was demoralization is looking at, I took it as kind of more the teacher frustrations. Why are teachers not feeling fulfilled? What their frustrations are versus the teacher burnout is the blame. And I think sometimes teachers accept the blame, and when they start to burn out, they'll take it on and blame themselves. But I also think it's the society's blame on teachers that they couldn't hack it, they couldn't handle it.
Yep. And they're putting the ownership on teachers alone versus as there's multiple layers of why things might not be successful, but no one's really taking a holistic approach.
Right.
They're just going to one person, which then, and I think teachers naturally, because they are more empathetic and caring, unfortunately tend to take it upon themselves to
accept it.
I think most teachers we know question go, oh, what could I have done differently? What should I have done differently? When in fact it's so much bigger than that.
Right. One of the things I was looking at is the teacher was talking about, and I think we've heard a lot of people say this, I can't teach the way I'm supposed to be teaching. Mm-hmm. And I've heard a lot of people talking about that in our district here, especially with, I would say, the inclusion teachers with the special ed students. Not being able to get the resources they want. We know class size is an issue. Teachers can't teach if they have 26, 27 kindergartners in a classroom. So that one really struck with me about not being able to teach the way they want.
And I think they had an opportunity in previous years before all these high stakes testing and requirements where they could be more creative and even go with the flow of their students. So they could kind of veer off a little bit and do more, I want to say, creative and kinesthetic type things to meet the needs of the diverse learners that they had that particular year, which because of the demand and the schedule of things that have to be put in, there is such little room for that. And I think there's a frustration both with the teachers but also with the students as well. And it's difficult because then you go, well, where do we go from there? How do we solve this problem?
Right. I was just talking to a colleague, so MCAS is coming up, so we were going through our list of what we need to brush up on before MCAS, so we were just going through, and we created a list of things we need to now hit and revisit with the kids before MCAS, but we were just saying, because you teach it in the units with our math program, it's kind of like they have it in isolation. It's not like our program from the past with the spiral curriculum, so now we're trying to review that with them things, and they've lost it from when we taught it because we haven't had the opportunity to go back and review it. So now we're trying to cram course and reteach these things before the testing date. So everyone's feeling the pressure and frustration with that.
Right, and I did also notice that, interesting about the amount of time teachers have to spend entering things into the computer versus actual teaching time. And I know in the past, even we've had the discussion here, about over-assessing. Yes, you need data and information to drive your instruction, but there's a point where that is taking time away from other things. There has to be a balancing of how much information do you need, when do you need it, and when do you need to just keep teaching and even trust your instincts. You know your kids. You kind of know the direction you need to go. You may not need to have a specific data in front of you, and you already know what the kid is weak on.
Right. So people are cramming in assessments because it's on the report card block that it's supposed to be on there. So cramming in lessons and assessments just to report on it.
And teachers are saying, this is a waste of my time, but it's not really being heard, particularly depending on who the leadership is. So there's definitely an ownership on both the leader within the building, but then the superintendent within the school district. And I think what's interesting is that varies from school to school, district to district, about, again, how they value their teachers, how the parents value their teachers, and then how the administration values their teachers. So it is much bigger than the teacher themselves.
It's the school climate. Going back to. All right. we're going to talk about, talking about the changes though, even just in my 16 years, I felt like when I first started, there was much more, as you were saying, the opportunity to teach depending on the student interests. And I don't think we had, now in our district, we have the MAP testing, we've got the DIBELS, we've got MCAS. I think when I first started, I think we just had the Iowa test and maybe the DRA in the spring, and that was about it. And you had your things you taught, but then it wasn't so driven by, and I think from what I'm hearing from the other grade levels is people would like the opportunity to drop off on some of the assessments and focus more on teaching.
And that would be a good conversation for them to be able to sit down with the administration and make a thoughtful conversation about what's important and what's not important, but that has to be heard. That has to be implemented. The leadership needs to hear and understand what teachers are saying. Again, they know their pocket of time. They know where they should be spending their time and where it's a waste of time. And I think in the end, teachers have the same goal. We want kids to exceed their potential and to have good academic performance, but I think we're seeing it in different ways.
Right. I think one of the things that, too, I kept thinking about is this relationship between teachers, administration, school committee, and parents, and that you would want it to be, you say everyone's on the same side, but I see it as adversarial in a lot of ways. I feel like parents, for whatever reason, don't think that teachers are always on their child's side. They don't trust that teachers have their children's best interests. They think there's some kind of, teachers have it out for a child for a certain reason, or if you don't respond exactly to what the parent requests, then you're against them, you're against. So I think that's frustrating. I think for a lot of people that contributes to a lot of the frustrations within teaching, especially in our district, which is parents can be demanding.
And the flip side of that is that some parents just feel like all the educational thing is just the school's responsibility and they have no ownership.
Right.
So there's a lack of ownership and responsibility that they'll take upon themselves to actually help when their child has a weakness or a skill. Right. It kind of gets thrown back to the school. It really has to be a team approach.
And even that, I think we get a lot of listed demands from the parents of things that they want put in place, but then homework doesn't get turned in, projects don't get turned in, so the parents aren't holding up their end in a lot of ways.
Yep, absolutely. And I think, as far as the rhetoric around teacher bashing, I do feel like that's actually a whole cultural thing. If you look at Finland, and one of the reasons why they're so successful with their education system is culturally, teachers are paid well and respected, highly respected. They're at the same level as doctor, and that's just not here. We have a whole shift in the thinking of teachers, but I think we have to do more PR work to actually put out how demanding and challenging the job is. Parents parents and actually even again, government officials seem to think that kids just sit down and do what you're asking them to do, and they can take in all the information, and they have no comprehension about what it really means to have to diversify just even within your own classroom.
Right.
And then just the time, energy, and extra work outside of the school day, because they just assume you work in the school day, how much extra time and energy it takes in the planning and diversifying your lessons for the kids. So I think, again,
that's a good point.
Beyond the teachers, it's a big systematic problem.
Absolutely. That's a good example, the Finland. Let's see. What else spoke to me on this? I noted overcrowded classrooms, lack of resources for the students. I was talking about, this one kind of struck me because we were talking about it's not just the high poverty districts, it's teachers, they said, across the U.S., which we are not a high poverty district. A lot of people would think we're, fairly affluent district. But I thought that it was interesting that the teacher burnout is pretty much across the board, no matter what district you're in. Because I feel like a lot of times we've kind of heard from some of the administration here, well, if you taught in this city close to us, well, then you realize how bad it is. And I've even heard from administration that we have first-class problems in our school district.
Right.
So.
Which is a hidden message that, gee, I don't really value what you're saying.
Right.
And I think all teachers, it doesn't matter where you're teaching, where you're from, where you're going, they want to feel heard and validated.
Exactly.
And we can't solve the problems or even move towards a progressive motion of making things better unless people are willing to actually hear without judgment, without a sarcastic comment.
That's where I kind of go that adversarial relationship. Like where our concerns they don't want to hear our concerns. It's, again, first class problems. If you went here, you'd appreciate, versus we really do have some issues that are wearing on people and need to be addressed.
Right. And if we would actually just focus on what those problems are, what are our options, how are they impacting students, and bring everything back to what is best for the students.
Right.
What's best for the students is to keep our teachers in a good place, to listen to them, to help them stay motivated, to help them feel valued and respected.
Right.
All those things that I think they're just feeling so frustrated.
I think like you're saying about that, listening to the teachers, because with our cuts we've had in the district, and you could have asked teachers, at what grade level do you think we should focus on the class sizes? I think people would have given you given administration a very honest and it wouldn't just be a selfish, my grade level, because that's the one I teach. I think people would have given better feedback versus administration solely making those decisions. I think a lot of decisions are totally from the top and nobody's listening to teacher feedback. So I think that's a lot of the frustrations. And
I know. When's the last time we've actually had a survey floating around?
The only survey we've had is our school calendar one, which took a lot of pushing to get recently. The school
and I
calendar
know I was
survey.
one who was very vocal with actually our union leader saying, listen, I know we can't all have our own way, but we deserve a voice.
Right.
In the proposal, which was my stand on that teachers need a voice.
I actually emailed our superintendent and asked him if there was going to be a survey to parents, and he actually responded that it is not a community decision. So, but I think after a number of pushbacks, the surveys were included, and as you know, that it was, a lot of the discussion was around our February vacation, which I think from going to the school committee meetings, they were not listening to the teachers. It was more of a laziness. They thought the teachers wanted the time off. They just wanted a vacation, and we're not listening to, it was based on best interest of the children.
On the TV? So was it televised?
They did. I went to the meeting, and basically it was the school committee member said, I'm just going to speak up, and if they want a vacation every 7 weeks, they need to, and I interpreted they, using that pronoun they, referred to the teachers. They need to realize other professions don't get a vacation every 7 weeks. So, and then a school committee member did speak up and remind the committee that they were talking about a calendar for children and not for adults working in an office.
And that gives a message. So if that's televised, that gives a message to the community, and people will pick up on, again, that impression of the teachers, all they want to do is have vacations.
Right.
Which is completely
and this is from
untrue.
Our chair of our school committee.
And it's not an accurate picture. And again, that's hearing part of the information, but not all of the information.
Right.
It's just such a small part. And that itself is frustrating, especially even, let's speak about the school committee for a minute. The school committee is made up of members who really don't usually know what it's like to actually be in the trenches.
Right.
And so then we're trying to make an effort to help them to understand, but that alone would be extremely time consuming unless they're willing to actually do their own research and look at the numbers.
So I think I agree with you, because if you're sitting on this committee that's making the sole decisions for a school district, but you are not taking the feedback from the teachers or the people that are working there, then I don't know how you can possibly make the best decisions regarding children's education if that's not your field and you're not listening to the feedback from the people who are doing the work.
Right. So that's just another piece of the puzzle of why teachers feel so frustrated.
So I think if we go back to the burnout question, though, I think a lot of it has to do too with how the job has changed, the expectations, the standardized testing, And then, yeah, I mean, the reality is people leave here and have families and have a whole nother job. And I think teaching where it used to be viewed as it was your work hours, 8 to 3, I think now with technology, people expect teachers to be accessible through email or through these remind apps, and that if they're contacted, you're getting a response no matter what the time is, basically.
Right.
So I think it's creeping into the hours have definitely expanded.
Life.
Yeah.
Their personal
So
life.
I think that is definitely...
And I think part of their, the word burnout, what it really means is I have no hope of things changing or getting better.
Right.
And so burnout is, to me, an equivalent of lack of hope.
Yep.
And when there's no hope, you're right, people are demoralized and they just feel like I've got to do something where at least I have some control and say over my life.
Right.
And so if we gave better say and control, and I think part of it has to be the training with the administration and superintendent, how important the leadership actually listening and giving a voice to the teachers. Whether they agree or disagree, that's not really the point here, because you're not always going to agree.
So just acknowledging that they're hearing, they're listening.
And taking pieces that make sense and are probably data driven. I'm sure we can pull up data on even some of the recommendations.
They talk about remoralizing with an authentic professional community. So that to me is what you're speaking about.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it would take a lot in a school district. It would take there's practically no resources that would be taken. It's just an honest conversation with staff and coming up with a priority list of what things need to be addressed.
Planning, that's important. Listening to your teachers should be just as important as, brushing your teeth. It really has to be a part of the fabric, the culture of the school system. And it should be continually. It's not a one-time thing.
Right.
And
well, I think that's a good thing, because if we think about historically our faculty meetings, a good portion ends up being a gripe fest, and then everyone kind of gets their gripes, and then you kind of move on from there, and that's it. It's never addressed, or we don't think about how we're going to go forward from there. We gripe. Mm-hmm. And then we move on to, okay, what do we have to do? What has to come next, versus addressing maybe what people are saying.
I'm going to throw it back onto the leadership.
Yeah, definitely.
A good leader would be able to listen and sort through that. Okay, yes, gripe, venting, they're upset, they're frustrated, they're angry. Those things are going to happen in a school system.
And what
every
are we
single
do?
School system. Now, how do you take that information and make it purposeful and useful, and then actually achieve a goal from that? A good leader would be able to know how to do that.
Exactly. That would go a long way to helping people. All right. Well, thank you so much for meeting with me today.